We're talking about all things AI, and we've got a lot more to talk about. So let's talk about sort of the academic integrity piece, since you were all educators, SVSU, U of M, Flint. So where are we? Nick, I'll start with you on the academic integrity.
On this topic, I usually lead, when I'm talking to faculty, I lead with this. If you're a fan of the 5-paragraph essay, it's a wrap. So these tools, as we've heard before, they're getting better and better at generating output that is convincingly human. The other issue is that AI detection is unreliable. So you may have heard earlier that we have tools called Turnitin. Those are plagiarism detectors. You can actually literally point to a source and say, hey, this was somewhere else. You need to explain yourself. But with AI detection, it's really just trying to look for patterns and combinations of words. But the funny thing about human language or English, humans can string words together in those same sequences. So it's a little bit unreliable. So really what we're trying to do is educate the faculty on these issues and show them a few pitfalls, a few things to look for. Mostly, is the student, are they discussing topics or issues that are beyond the scope of what they learned in class? Is the student making a lot of weird value judgments that they normally wouldn't make, like it is important to remember type judgments? Or are they solving problems in a way that's more advanced than they should know at that point in their educational sequence? Okay. And at that point, it's really a conversation with the student.
All right. Nick, can you, not Nick, but Douglas, can you follow up on that a little bit on the academic integrity piece?
Yeah, I mean, Nick already captured it so well with the 5-paragraph essay is dead. Really any kind of assignment that could be easily accomplished by providing a short prompt to a generative AI tool is almost too easy for a student to use. And so one of the other approaches that I've been using in my class is to actually encourage its use and to reward students through extra points in their grades if they find new ways to use generative AI tools to either expedite the process of doing their assignments while still retaining the educational value or improving the quality of their assignments, because those kinds of uses will probably be very attractive to their potential employers.
Well, it sets up you, Peter. So how are you using it in your classrooms?
So I'm hoping to be proactive here, right? With the realization that students have access to the technology, one option is to sort of get ahead of them. So on a recent assignment set, I would give students a prompt of exactly the kind that is potentially worrisome, but I would also give them ChatGPT's reply and tell them, this is what ChatGPT spit out. I want you to critically engage with this reply. Tell me what you think is wrong with it. One of the current, I guess, upsides of how ChatGPT is working is because it's doing so much work with respect to how current language patterns are, ChatGPT tends to produce very kind of normie, boilerplate, not terribly creative responses. It will give you a very kind of stock response that is absolutely ripe for criticism if somebody's willing to engage with it that way. So in a sense, ChatGPT is supplying the materials for better philosophical argumentation, or at least fodder for better philosophical argumentation. Here's a kind of reasonably well-structured, clearly expressed view. You tell me what you think of it. And my understanding is, and I'm happy again to defer to my colleagues here, that when ChatGPT tries to reflect on its own responses, there's just a little bit less to work with there. Right. And so it's very hard for a student to tell ChatGPT, tell me what's wrong with this response that it provided. It just doesn't have enough to work with. And the sort of the problematic plagiarized answers in that case are much, much, much easier to detect. Also, students are really having a blast with this. Right. They really were actually excited about explaining why ChatGPT, or at least 3.0, ChatGPT 3.0, wasn't doing as good of a job as maybe they expected it to do. Now, maybe that changes with 4.0 and future levels up, but right now it's actually kind of useful fodder for getting students to argue and think critically.
So Nick and Douglas, you're both nodding in approval. So do each of you have a little example of that? Or?
Yeah, so I think what we just learned or what we heard is, so when we have a faculty member meet with an instructional designer, we talk about, would using this technology undermine either your ability to assess the learning outcomes or the student's ability to learn? And if it doesn't, you integrate it. And that sounds like what's happening here is you integrate the tool. And like we've had similar experience. Students love to get the output and then think about ways that either it was wrong or ways it was right or what it missed. But then at the next level, like, oh, we probably don't want to, maybe it would undermine things. That's when we talk about like mitigation strategies or even moderate it to a certain extent. And that's when we start looking at redeveloping assessments.
Right. Douglas, you too?
Well, anyone that's been in college and has had a big assignment, they know that there's nothing more daunting than the blank page, getting started. And something that's really surprised me in a good way is how students will come to me with the prompts they gave to ChatGPT to effectively do their entire assignment, and then how they didn't find that adequate, but used it as a great starting point or a first draft to transform and really make it their own.
Okay. Well, the last area for the after show just has to do with social media, the social media giants, social media platforms, what they should be doing. As we brought it up in the big show part of it. I mean, recently Congress was kind of grilling these social media giants on some of their content, and so I guess it begs the question, what should they be doing with it? Are they going to change the way they work a little bit? Any thoughts on that? Anybody?
Well, I think we need to keep in mind that a lot of the technological defense mechanisms for generative AI are not foolproof. And Nick brought this up before, I brought this up before. And so social media giants have a really hard task in figuring out how do we identify generative AI content? How do we inform users of that, especially if our detection of that content isn't 100% foolproof? So for example, with the upcoming election, how do we inform users that content might potentially be AI generated or AI modified if we're not exactly sure?
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And make sure to click that bell icon to stay notified when we upload new content. Videos like this are only possible because of viewers like you. To help support this channel, click on the link in the description below. We'll see you next time.